Hello and welcome everyone. It's Shanna. I'm so glad you're here today. Now today we're going to be making this fun card, and we are working with Spellbinders Stitching Die of the month for August 2026, and it is called Franken-Stitch, and there are 15 cutting dies with this, and you've got the stitching dies and you've got some regular ones. Now I'm pulling out the little sheet that shows you an example of how you can make the card, and then it just shows you all the different pieces and the layerings. And so we're just going to get to making a card with this. I've already done all of my die cutting, and I have actually stitched most of my panels, got them all ready, but we're going to stitch one on camera just to kind of give you a feel for it. So I'll kind of try to hold it up to where you can see it, and then we'll just speed it up and do some stitching. What I did was I took a tape runner and I just put some stitch on the back so that I can hold down the start of it. Now this pattern is very wonky, but the good news is they've given you an impression of which hole stitches with which, because this is really an unusual pattern because we are making a mummy. Honestly, it's called Franken-Stitch, but it's very much a mummy pattern, and so the lines are there so that you know which holes to connect to which. And so I'm just quickly stitching this up. I stitched all of the other ones off camera, was listening to some music, and just did all the stitching because I thought it does take a good bit of time to do the stitching. And I think this was about a 4-minute stitch, and I sped it up. So it does take a little bit of time to do the stitching, but it's not too bad at all. These aren't too terribly challenging. So I added some more tape runner and then just taped down the other end of my floss. And I'm not worried about it because I'm going to put plenty of glue on there. Now I'm going to bring in this Crackle 3D embossing folder. This is an older one. I just think this is perfect for Halloween. I've used it on a couple of my cards. And I've got some Raven cardstock from Spellbinders. And now we're just going to get to figuring out our layers. So I pointed to my sheet of paper. I'm just kind of looking at it to kind of get a feel for what I'm doing. Now I'm going to lay all these out, and then I'm going to pick them up to glue them and move them around, and I don't think I'll get them in the same spot that I'm laying them out here with, but I'm just kind of doing a dry run trying to figure out how I want to assemble them. So I'll play around with them, and then we'll start to get them glued down. So today actually was my husband and I's 36th wedding anniversary, and so we went out to dinner and had a nice dinner. We went to a restaurant that we had been to several times and we really liked, but they had moved locations, and we had not gotten into this new location. Since they moved, they've just been incredibly packed every time we've tried to go. So we started out very early this evening and got there early so that we could get in and get it. It's actually at an airport now, and so we were able to watch the planes landing and taking off as we were enjoying our meal, and it was really fun. And then got home, and we had gone to Menards and bought some things, and so we worked in the yard a little bit. And then I said, I got to get this card made. So you can see I've got all this laid out. I kind of like how I have it laid out. It's not how I wind up doing it, because then I remember that I wanted to ink blend these and just dirty them up so that it looks like, kind of a mummy cloth. And so I've got my black soot blending brush. It's a Heroes Arts blending brush, but it has black soot on it. And I didn't take it to the ink pad because I know I had enough ink on there to just dirty these up. I just wanted to give them a little bit of grunge and not too much. And so I didn't even worry about bringing my ink pad out. And so we'll just get these all distressed and spooky looking. And so this is fog cardstock. I've got fog and I've got anchor, and I have no idea what that other dark color is. I was going through my Spellbinders swatches because I was thinking that was Spellbinders, but I don't think it is. So I must have grabbed another color from somewhere else and used it. And so now I'm just inking up the teeth, and I just die cut them out in some white, and I really was trying to make them kind of yellow in between the teeth just to kind of make them dirty. And so I just took a yellow blending brush and just blended some ink on them just to give them some yellow color there. And now I'm going to set to the task of trying to figure out how I had these laid down here. And I think I don't know, maybe come up with a different pattern that works, but we'll just get them laid down, and it doesn't really matter. You can lay them any way that you want, and you can do as many layers as you want or as few layers as you want. I decided to do, what have I got? I've got 5 of the stitched ones, and I've got 3 of the non-stitched. And what I did for those is I just used the outline of the stitch panel without the stitch piece in it, and I cut them out that way so that I'd have some different layers. So I've got several layers here, and I'm just going to try and get them positioned and start building our card. Now I thought, well, I'll just put a dab of glue here and pinch it together and it'll stay together. It didn't. So I'll just start gluing things up and putting them down. And then I think I have to bring in a magnet to kind of hold them in place because the stitching is causing them to raise, and so they're not wanting to lay. So I need to get more glue on there and give them time to set. So we'll get these 2 laid down on here. I'm just going to put a glob of glue on there and then try to get them laid down, and then you'll see probably the one will pop up, and then I'll bring in my magnet to hold it down once I realize that things are popping up. So they're all hanging off the edge of the card base, and that's going to work out fine because we're just going to trim them off. Now I am going to add my teeth later. I'll have to slide them in there, and fortunately, because of the stitching, and it taking time to glue, I am able to kind of slide my teeth in there. So we'll get some of these plain strips that are non-stitched laid down on there. I grabbed the magnet, and I'm like, I need to give it some pressure so it'll hold. And we'll layer these up. I don't think I've ever made a mummy before. Maybe I have. I think maybe I had a cat scrappiness mummy at one point on my channel. So I'm going to get this stitch panel laid down on there. I'm going to figure out how I'm going to do it. I'll start gluing them up and slapping them down and seeing what we can come up with. But I like all the different colors of the gray. I thought the 3 different gray colors would look nice together. And it's not a color scheme I would normally do. So it seemed perfect for this mummy kind of Halloween card. And I was hesitant to use all this Spellbinders cardstock. I was like, oh, I hate to use all this, but I don't use gray as much. So I'm like, I have plenty. I don't know why I'm trying to hoard it here. But anyway, so we'll get these teeth laid down in there. And I'm trying to figure out, and then I realized I had another piece. I was like, how am I going to cover these teeth up? And then I realized I had another piece that I was going to layer on there to help cover them up. And so we'll tuck them in, and then we'll use that to layer them up. And I just put some glue just along the top edge of that. I didn't actually glue the teeth down. And then we'll just layer this up, and it'll kind of cover up, the top of the teeth there. So we'll get this laid down on there. We have our new neighbor is moving in. I didn't realize it. She had said that it would be August 3rd or 4th before she would arrive. She's coming from out of state. And there's been lots of work going on at her house. Her best friend has been coordinating things, and I've been in contact with her because I've been kind of helping her along the way. But anyway, Pat had gone outside, and he said, there seems to be some moving in going on over there. He said they've got a horse trailer. And they did. But I told him, I said, well, she's coming from a farm, so she likely had a horse trailer, and they used that. But anyway, so she's getting moved in. I haven't had a chance to see her. I don't even know if she's there. They came and left. I went outside because we got some new lights, and I went out in the dark to see them lit up, and I noticed that they were gone. So anyway, I'll have to catch up with her soon. So I'm just trimming these pieces off here, and we've got a little mummy card. I've got it upside down at the moment. We'll spin it around. And I've got a gluey mess on this desk, so I'm going to grab a rag and just give it a good clean. And there we go. It's starting to come together. Now I'm going to show you the eyes. These eyes are interesting, and I did my best to try and assemble them as I think they're supposed to be. But there was an extra piece I wasn't sure what it was for, and I wound up using it to kind of pop my eyeball up. In fact, I had 2 of them, and I wound up using it to pop the eyeball up. So here's the base. This is the white part of the eye, and there is another white piece that you add to it that has like a circle, and it has some detail on it. And so you just lay it on here like this, and then you're going to bring in the black part of the eye and layer it up. And then there's a outer piece that you can put down on top of it. Now, I think this is pretty similar to how the picture looks. I used purple for that outside piece because I'm going to use purple for my sentiment. And then you're going to layer it up like this. And then we're going to do the other one. Now, to me, these eyeballs I thought were kind of small for what I wanted. And so I'm going to get these assembled, and then we'll bring in a layer from our Create a Monster die, and we'll add and make these eyeballs bigger. So I'm just going to layer them up just like I did the other one. Get it laid down on there. And then we'll have our eyeballs. And you've got some eyebrows too that are just hysterical. They're kind of like, they look like you're startled. You know, your eyebrows are raised like you're startled or something. That's what they look like. Super fun. So tomorrow is the first day of school in our area for the grade school, and then the preschool will start next week. Anyway, so we've got some changes going on. We did have a blast today. I took the kids to the park, and they rode their bikes and just had a blast. And then I also took them back to their house so they could swim in their pool, because I thought, gee, their summer is, coming to an end with school starting. So I thought, well, they might want to swim. Gunnar wanted to swim. He had put on his swim trunks at my house, and I said, well, we'll just go to your house and get in the pool. So that's what we did. I took them, and they swam for a little bit. So here's where I brought in those build a monster circles and added them to the eyes. And I've got these bigger eyes now, and I think I like the scale of them. When you think about the scale of the teeth and then the scale of these eyes, I think to me, I like them layered up like this. So here's the eyebrows, and like I said, it looks like they're kind of startled. Ooh. Anyway, so I'm going to figure out where these eyeballs go, and I'm going to try and get these eyebrows brought down on there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the spinners, and we're going to make these spin. Now I'm going to get started on it, and because of the stitching and the different layers, I have trouble with one of them. And that's when I use those extra 2 little ovals that I wasn't sure what they were for, and I kind of pop them up. Now this is the one I have trouble with, because you can see that I'm setting it on that gray layer that is under the stitched layers. And so what I've done is I've set them to where it's not going to be high enough to spin real freely. It'll spin, but not like these spinners. These spinners really, they'll fly. And so I'm going to get some tape and some glue. I like to do both and give it a press. And you can here I'm going, wait a minute, it's spinning, but it's not spinning easily. So I pull that up, and that's where I grab these little oval pieces, and I have 2 of them. And I thought, I'm going to layer these up to try and bring that gray layer up to the height that the stitched layer is. And then this seems to work. So I'll add some more tape, and then I'll add some glue. I'm trying to get it in the center. I kind of was off center there. And then we'll do a puddle of glue, and we'll lay this down on there. And then it's spinning. I was testing it to make sure it's going to spin. I'm going to put some more glue on that one and get it laid down on there, and it's going to spin now. So just get it positioned. Now the other one was laying on top of the stitched panel, so it's not going to have any problems. But I thought I'd leave that in and just show you what had occurred and how you can come around it. Now I need to let them dry a little bit so that I don't knock them off. In fact, I think I wind up moving them around a couple times to try and get them. I've got a gnat flying around in there, and I just smashed it. I don't know why I have a gnat in the craft room. I've had a couple all of a sudden. I don't know. We have been bringing in items from our garden, and sometimes when you do that, you know, I've got some things sitting on the counter, and sometimes it brings in gnats. Now, here's another thing that I did. I die cut out my trick or treat. It's really fine, and I didn't use Spellbinders cardstock. I've got some thin cardstock that's not a good quality. And I went ahead and taped them down. And this is a very thin sentiment, so it really wasn't the best way to do it. But I've got the front of them on the tape, and I'm just gluing it up, the back of it. And then I'm going to lay it down on my panel, and then I'll let the tape release it. And it'll be in this, you know, in the exact way that it was die cut out. And I do struggle with this a bit, but if you take your time, you can do this, especially with sentiments that aren't quite as fine. So I'm just going to work that sentiment off there. I'll figure out if I give it a little bit of drying time before I start pulling, that I'm going to have some better success with it. But there we go. I got it all laid down, and it's laid down just like it came out of the die. And we're going to do our oar. And I kind of got this, I didn't get it laid down as nicely as I would have liked to, but I think it's okay. I'll get the oar, and then I kind of put my treat over a little bit too far. So we're just going to glue them up. We'll lay them down. I start to pull them up, and then I think, no, let's let it glue. Let's let it dry a little bit. Here's where I'm fussing with it. And I'm like, okay, just let that dry. Move on to the next one, and then come back and pull it off. If it has a little bit of dry time, it'll work better. So that's just some washi tape that I'm using. And I'm pulling the centers of the letters out is what I'm doing there, so that I don't glue them down. Lay some glue on there. I'm going to touch it with my fingers so it's not as messy. I was kind of a little messy with the first few. I should have put the treat a little more to the left. Now here I'm just going to pull it off with my tweezers, and it's kind of glued down. I used my tweezers to hold them, so I just didn't pull them up. And then we're just cleaning up some glue on there. And I've got my trick or treat laid down on there. And this is where I realize I should have moved it over to the left a little bit, but it is what it is. It's kind of a wonky card anyway. So I'll just fuss with it until I get this washi tape off of there. And there we go. So tomorrow, my daughter's going to take my grandson to school, and I'm going to do a ride-along with him in the morning, so just to get the lay of the land for the new class and everything. So this will finish up our card, and you can see it's moving around, and I'm like, I've got to work on this. So I'm going to get it lined up, give it a press. I'm like, let it dry. And so I'll give it some time to dry. And I realized I don't have it on a card base yet. So I'm going to grab a card base. We're going to bring it in. I've got a top folding card base. Still giving those eyeballs a press, trying to give them time to dry. And then we'll get this panel laid down on there. I'm putting plenty of glue because it is a 3D embossed folder. And we're just going to lay it straight on a top folding A2 size card base. And of course you got to spin a spinner, so I'll give them a spin. One does spin better than the other one, but I think they're fun. So I've taken a picture so that you can see it close up, and I've got a playlist. If you like this type of content, you can check out more club videos.